Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Wait, Gabiniscus. Bonjour, bonjour. Oki, Tansei, Tanishikia. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is so wonderful to have you here for our spring series. Hopefully, you're coming in to the soft sound of bird call with us from this moment. We've got 350 people and increasing, and I just want to let you know that over 3,600 of you signed up for this workshop. I mean, you broke our records. I mean, it's just incredible that this many people are dedicated to this outdoor learning space, and we appreciate every single one of you. Yes, somebody found the react button. It's at the bottom of your bar. You can send us some emojis because we can't fit you all in a Zoom meeting. So we're here in webinar together. Yes, welcome. If it helps you, there is a closed captions. You can hit more with the 3 dots at the bottom of your screen and open closed captions, and that will give you a transcript of what's happening. And if you've got any tech questions or things, please let us know in the chat. We're here to support you. And there is a Q&A for later, but we'll dive in and then we can get to that. I'm going to just be sharing. Here we go. It's spring 2025. How is it April already? It's the 15th of April, and we're here learning in the garden from some incredible experts, getting some activities, lessons, and resources. Oh my goodness, I've regretted this now. I did this when I was relaxed and now I feel nervous about it. But one of my incredible Indigenous mentors, the author Richard Van Camp, who I've been working with both professionally and as a friend, has encouraged me. So my land acknowledgement today, I'm in Sinixt territory. They're the people of the bull trout, this area that my husband and my dog and my best friend are biking on is ephemerally flooded by Sinhuinhuitqua. Sinhuinhuitqua is the swift river, and this is a wetland ecosystem that dries out and becomes an incredible nesting space for lots of different birds and incredible owl hunting environment because of all the mice that hide in the grass. Anyway, I'm putting it off. He encouraged me to be connected to the land, to show my appreciation. And so my appreciation today is that I wrote a poem about our bike ride that happened at the weekend. It goes like this: swish, swish, swish. The grass is talking to me, whispering, "Where are you going and what do you see?" Garter snake pops out to bake on the road, and Otis, my dog, is flying from his head to his toes. The sun is out and the wind is fast and the air is filled with tufts of grass, and the whispers get louder and I reply, "I'm going along here and feeling joy. Thank you for asking." And so I respond, "What are you up to? How do you feel? Do you like it when the wind blows and breaks you and fills you up with energy to shoot through the sky? Or do you too feel scared when you get up high? Do you miss the snowy blanket and the damp of the melt, or relish the dry, cakey mouse footprint covered earth?" It's so nice to know you and be with you here. I'll be back next weekend, never fear. There's plenty of time to chat and know more, and I wish you a spring filled with joy galore. The noise of the grass with the wind was like incredibly loud. Oh, thank you for the emojis. My gosh, that was frightening. I'm going to keep going. But my acknowledgement is first to the land and for the gifts, and I'm grateful for those gifts. If you too have a connection to Indigenous ways of knowing and being, or want to know more, or on that journey of reconciling and uplifting the truth and wisdom of Indigenous people, we have a bunch of things coming up. So Richard Van Camp, missed him in March, but Linda Case and Judy Halbert, who did this incredible, wrote this program around spirals of inquiry, which is an amazing in any educational work environment, is on April 24th. So perhaps you'll join us for one of them. We also have our introductory Mischief Language course starting at the end of this month. You can sign up, and if you're Indigenous, you can sign up for free. In May, Monique Grace Smith the incredible person. The reason why there's bird call in this Zoom is inspired by her learning, is coming to talk braiding sweetgrass for educators. So we hope you'll join us for one or more. And this is just launched the super early bird registration, our 4 seasons, which covers 4 years of truth and reconciliation training. We've just launched our speaker lineup for 25-26. This would start in the fall of this year and go through the educational school year until June in 2026. And there are some absolute incredible people who will be sharing. So we hope you might join us. Here with me is one of my favorite humans and wonderful person, Julie.
Thank you, Jade. You're one of my favorite people as well. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here with you today. I'm Julie, the program manager at Take Me Outside. We're a national nonprofit that supports outdoor learning, and we're always so excited to partner on these seasonal educator workshops. I'm so excited about tonight's session as well. And I just want to share my gratitude for joining today from Dish with One Spoon, Wampum Belt Covenant, and Between the Lakes Treaty 3 land at the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, and land which has been and continues to be cared for by the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe. And I wanted to share tonight, if you didn't know, we have our outdoor learning certification course that has been recently updated. It is, really a valuable. We've been getting great feedback from it. This is also in partnership with the Outdoor Learning School and Store. The most recent, up-to-date, amazing version is now launched. So we encourage you to check it out if you haven't before, and share if you'd like to share. Also very exciting, we're about to launch it in French as well. That will be in the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested in the French outdoor learning certification course, you can check back on our website or sign up for our newsletter, but we're very excited to be launching that so soon. Thanks, everyone. I'll pass things back over to Jade.
Thank you, Julie. Oh, such a wonderful thing. And all online, do at your own pace, but with the opportunity to go and take real activities and practice them wherever you educate. Okay, we're going to dive quickly in. We're just wondering who's joining us today. And so I'm going to launch the poll. You should see it on your screen, hopefully. There it is. There's 2 questions. We're wondering what kind of educator you are. And if you're not an educator, although that's anyone that shares information, perhaps you want to share in the chat who you are and why you're here. And we've got a bit of a map. Rest of the world, because we can only have a certain amount of answers. If you're joining us from anywhere outside of North America, or what some people call Turtle Island, please feel free to share. Wonderful. We're just going to leave it for a couple of moments more. Over 500 people here sharing together, sharing this space, coming here to connect to gardening and outdoor learning. It's just really lovely. Okay, closing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results with you. So lots of younger educators, or educators of younger folk, I should say. And every kind of category we could come up with. We have representation, fantastic. And people joining us from all over. Wherever you are in the rest of the world, feel free. I missed it, but this is very exciting and so powerful that so many people are committed to this work. We're making a difference for sure. And if you want more friends to support you in making a difference, we think our friends are the best friends out there, and they too can be your friends. So we've got partnerships galore with people that are dedicated to supporting you. It might be regional, it might be topic based. And so we encourage you to check out our partners page if you're looking for help or support, and we hope that we'll find you there. And for now, I'm going to introduce our fantastic guests who I'm so excited to have open this amazing spring series for us. And we're going to be learning in the garden. We have Casey Ray Christopher. If you haven't met Casey Ray Christopher before, because we've done beautiful workshops together, so glad to have you back. Casey Ray is an educator and writer passionate about fostering a healthy land ethic, personal empowerment, and environmental literacy in children of all ages through immersion and skill building. She's the author of the School Garden Curriculum, which is an integrated K-8 guide for discovering science, ecology, and whole systems thinking. It's the Bible that I use for writing programming in the garden, and it's incredible. Also joining us is Sarah Pounders, who is the Senior Education Specialist at Kids Gardening, who've published this new Math in the Garden book, which is hands-on activities that bring math to life. Sarah's been active in the field of youth gardening for almost 30 years, with experience coordinating numerous children's gardens, writing curricula and activities for youth of all ages, teaching formal and informal education programs, and conducting educator training sessions. Growing up surrounded by plants instilled a deep love of gardens for Sarah and the desire to share that love with others. You also enjoy gardening at home with your 2 children and volunteering with youth garden programs in your community. And last but absolutely not least, Em Shipman. Em is the executive director of Kids Gardening, who've published that amazing Math in the Garden book. Em is a lifelong community builder, has led transformative programs in food systems, agriculture, and education for 20 plus years. She's a fierce advocate for both children and the environment, who believes that garden based learning and place based education are key to nurturing curious, mindful, and engaged children, and believes that when kids have access to healthy food and hands on outdoor learning, they unlock their full potential. And her mission is to help shape the next generation of leaders who'll drive the social and environmental change needed to heal our planet. Oh, only a small task, just a little one. Set ourselves. And so I'll pass it. I'm going to stop the bird song and pass it over to you for your presentation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jade. That was a beautiful introduction. I'll start us off and then pass it on to Sarah and Em. I'm going to hide myself because I can see myself, and that is always awkward. Okay, yeah, thank you so much. I'm Casey Ray Christopher. My first name's Casey Ray, and I live in Central Oregon. I inhabit the traditional lands of the Northern Paiute, the Wasco, and the Warm Springs tribes, also known as the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs Indian Reservation in Oregon. And I'm really excited to share this work with you today and hopefully launch some ideas for activities you can do in the spring. So let me share my screen and we will get started. Okay. Here we go. So yes, school garden curriculum. Jay did such a great explanation of all the things it encompasses. And I do want to thank you, Jade, for your vulnerability and sharing that poem. I feel like the noticing and the awe and the wonder and questioning that you had in that is just so beautiful, and it really resonates with me and then also with the work that I like to do with the students I work with. So thank you for sharing that and really embodying a lot of the values that I hold as well. So I want to give you all kind of an overview of this curriculum just so you can understand the framework, but also my own internal framework as far as an educator, the values that I hold, and how, and you'll be able to see that integrated into the activities that I will dive into. So this book is really, the core values are really cultivating a sense of wonder and awe in students. It's for kindergarten or 8th grade, but you can also use it as beginning gardeners to more advanced gardeners. So it can be really flexible. And there's about 30 lessons per grade, 10 lessons per season. So the idea is that you can just start in the fall and work your way all the way to the spring and kind of have some regular lessons. We really focus, and you're going to see this on the activities that I offer, you're really going to see a focus on observation. I feel like observation is such a key to relationship building. And it's also really good for kids to check their reactions, it gives them a little bit of a breathing space. Maybe they see that bee and they're uncomfortable, but just by having the framework of observation, it can kind of change the way they interact with that creature, maybe from a lens of a scientist rather than, a more reactionary interaction. And also some of the framework too is just really about relationship building with the land and then also with a community, whether it's human or non-human. And then it just also supplements science standards. I have mostly for the US, I have NGSS standards. But you'll see a lot of the science elements in this curriculum as well. So there's this foundation there. Oh, I totally forgot to start my timer. Okay, Jade, I might need your help. I always like to start us off with, oh no, I don't have it. Where's my image? Okay, imagine there's an image of a worm right here and a picture of a flower with calendula. It's a calendula with like a little native pollinator on it. And so one of the frameworks that I have and the values that I really have as an educator is really thinking about interaction with the land in a garden or even just an outdoor space from the viewpoint of an ecosystem. So an ecosystem, for example, you'll see this image, there's like a sun, and then there's a line that goes down to a person and a bunny and a person and a plant. We often think of ecosystems and relationships as this sort of hierarchy of producer, consumer, um, decomposer, predator, things like that. And what I'm trying to express more is that it's not so much this hierarchy, it's a web of interaction. So there's a spider web here to really represent what I like to teach my students, which is that ecosystem health isn't about it's about relationships. And really, a strong ecosystem has all these different connections. So, with this picture that's supposed to be here of a worm, we're also thinking, like, how does this worm have a relationship with this calendula flower? And how does this worm have a relationship with the native pollinator that's on that flower? So, it's really thinking more about the relationships of things in a garden. And you can, from there, extend it to, well, what is our role as humans interacting with the worm, the flower, and the pollinator? And it leads to some really great conversations with kids about the role that they would like to have in the world, or maybe how they would like to treat each other or other things. So this is kind of the foundation to the work that I have. Oh my goodness, none of my photos are showing up. Let's see if I can try this again. Oh my goodness. Well, that's a bummer. Okay, this was just working a second ago. Jay, do you want me just to continue on and I can just describe the photos as we go?
Maybe try stop share and come back in.
Okay.
And then make sure if there might be that little thing at the top that says media links blocked. And just give that a go again.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Good old technology, eh? And yeah, I love the way that you talk about the world. And as someone who comes from a science background and really thought that things had to look, and had to be constantly objective, to find that wonder and that love and that connection, and be able to have a more holistic approach to learning and teaching has really been revolutionary. And your book was probably the first book I read that I felt allowed me to have both of those things simultaneously.
Mm,
And so I thank you for that.
thank you, Jade. Okay, I think we're at it.
We got it. I see worms. I see lettuce.
Okay,
Love it.
fantastic. Thank you.
Sometimes you just have to turn it off and turn it on again, don't you?
Yeah, you do. It's the simplest solution. Thank you. Another thing that you're going to see in the curriculum, but then also the lessons that I promote is really thinking about, especially going into the spring, how can you have some regular engagement in the garden? How can you have some more consecutive check-ins rather than standalone? I think sometimes educators try to do everything, they want to plant the peas, they want to engage with the strawberries, but sometimes just slowing down and spending time with one thing can really help students absorb that information, just feel more comfortable in the garden, a little less rushed, and lead to more observations that are, again, helping them develop that relationship. So maybe it's planting the pea seeds, watching the peas grow, measuring them, building trellises for them, really taking time to just continuously interact with something is just really going to help them cultivate that sense of natural change, of the seasonality, the way that things grow. They also helps them mimic natural cycle, or not helps them mimic, but they get to encounter natural cycles because they're watching things change. And that can also lead to more just organic opportunities. So rather than be like, this is the exact lesson, we're going to have this engagement, there might be some opportunities to be like, oh, what is nibbling on our pea shoots? Let's have a conversation. Let's engage with that. Let's do some research or learn some more. And so there's these like organic opportunities that pop up. And then just again, it's providing that regular healing and regulation space for students. Just knowing that it's happening And I think within a sometimes it feels like a very chaotic world, it just allows them a safe place to be in. So gardening with kids in all seasons, I just highly promote this. You know, there's always opportunities in spring and winter and fall, but especially in spring, there's just some unique lessons that are offered to students of all ages. In this picture, you'll see a student who's planting seeds. This is a student who's really uncomfortable handling the dirt. And some of the students that I work with in special education also, you know, have some sensory barriers for them. And so finding, you know, this unique opportunity for them, for the student to find a way to still engage with gardening, whether it's just using this little tool to pop a seed in, was pretty remarkable. So there's a lot of opportunities in spring, and we're going to talk about what those are. So the way that I approach spring is I really think about it as an opportunity to problem solve and to innovate. Again, there might be those nibbles on a pea shoot, and that gives some opportunity for conversation of what can we do about this? What are some solutions that we can come up with? And then to experiment and try those out. Or maybe there's a really muddy patch in the garden or an outdoor space. You know, what can we do to kind of maybe work with the soil a little bit and create a little garden space. So it's really provides a lot of opportunities for that, for some experimenting. Another focus that I have is really thinking about then again that interdependence and that community mindset. There's just so much blooming happening. There's movement of insects and birds and wind and you know, and even some seeds sometimes. And so there's an opportunity there to really consider, again, the relationship of all of these things together. They make up the garden ecosystem. We're a part of that garden ecosystem, and to be able to choose how we want to interact with that. Applying knowledge, you know, maybe they're doing some research on worms and reading about worms. Maybe there's something that they can see a need of in the garden. Maybe it's a worm bin, or maybe it's some more, maybe they're learning about pollinators. They want to put in a flower that pollinators are going to like. They can start to apply that knowledge and then observe it. And then becoming agents of change. I feel like through some consecutive interactions in a garden around a theme, then they can really kind of speak up about that theme. They can really talk about the importance of worms in a garden bed, or the value of pollinators for our fruits and our seeds. And so they can really maybe advocate for the changes that they want to see. And that could be with their parents, that could be on a poster for an end of year activity or something that they put up as an infographic. So there's some opportunities for them to share what they know. So kind of last overall frame, this is, I've broken down each grade into a subject that they follow. So in kindergarten, they really are just learning who the members of the garden ecosystem are and how to behave around them. Kindergarten is very much focused on behavior for me. First, in grade 1, they're doing sprouting seeds and really thinking about how seeds are changing and growing, and then also their role in the whole garden. Insect pollinators in second are just really important opportunities to engage with a living thing and develop a relationship with them. So sometimes I'll have students just devote themselves to bumblebees or devote themselves to a native pollinator, and they become almost a zealot for that native pollinator. And it just gives them that opportunity again to like see the value in something that maybe they've just walked by before. Third, they're fostering healthy soils. They're thinking about different materials they can add, and it's very hands-on. Fourth grade, they're focusing on worms, maybe building a worm bin or tending to one. And then fifth, compost, really looking about how healthy soils create healthy plants. And then in sixth, they're looking at kind of larger structures and systems. Maybe it's a rain garden, maybe it's a pollinator garden. And then 7 and 8, they're really focusing on designing solutions to problems, becoming leaders maybe to younger students, and then supporting just the larger biodiversity in the garden. So they kind of go from this more specific view to like, you know, building off of each other so they can look at the larger world. So core values, really looking like this is kind of just a summary of what I've said, really exploring the relationships between things, and then maybe extending that to daily life. Maybe they had a really positive interaction with a worm that made them a little uncomfortable, we can talk about how they behaved, how they handled that. Maybe they just walked away carefully from a bee, or maybe they decided just to watch with their eyes and not with their hands. And then to be able to extend that to daily life, maybe an interaction with a sibling or a friend or parent. Um, Everyone has a role, even pests. So sometimes what we consider pests, they're also part of the garden ecosystem. Those aphids are the food source for ladybugs. So understanding, this is where observation really comes in, really understanding that everything has that role. Some back pocket, we'll kind of dive a little bit more into this, but identification and data collection are probably my go-to activities in the spring because there's just so much to observe. And I'll give some examples of some worksheets of what that looks like. Scavenger hunts are just a fantastic one, again, to help with observation, with behavior. And then telling stories about what they find is another beautiful way to build relationship. And then finding evidence. This is a great time of year to find evidence of activity. They don't even need to find the insects. They can find the nibble marks. They can find the little poops or the tracks or the snail and slug slime. Maybe there's some prints in the mud, so they can find evidence of the garden ecosystem, even if they don't see them. So there's a few examples of some worksheets. This is from the book, and I would use these for K through 12 student, or not 12, K through second students. So you have like edible flowers. These are just some common flowers that you might find in a garden, nasturtiums, borage, or calendula, and you can choose whatever works best for your region and have them maybe make tally marks. They can use it with, do it with a friend to count, and then coming back as a table group. So they've practiced identification, maybe looking at the shape of leaves or flower shape. And then they're also kind of adding that math in, working together as a group. And then if I had students coming back into a classroom, I might gather, all the nasturtium numbers, all the borage numbers, the calendula, and then we can kind of talk. Maybe we can make a little graph together, the first graph. Or we can practice that counting. So there's a lot of extensions that can come off of this. And the same with insects. This is something that I would do with some older students who might be a little bit more comfortable around insects. So they can find them, they can tally them, they can make wonderings about why they found certain numbers over others. Some of these creatures tend to live above ground, some live below. And to again kind of make that extension off of it while also kind of adding that math element as well. For older students, maybe more 3, 4, 5, but usually like 3, 4, they can become, there's a lot of great community science projects that are available for students to engage with. So you can do this on your own. They could just be monitoring one flower or one type of flower, even a color, and spending 5 minutes observing the insects that are landing on it. So they can count them and total, different types. Maybe it's like, oh, I saw 2 bumblebees and I saw 1 honeybee. And there's some resources here, and I've kind of linked them onto the slide, where you can upload information that your students have collected and participate in national and also North American level community science projects. So there's bumblebee projects, there's bud burst, the Great Sunflower Project. And so your students are actually able to collect data that then can be used on a larger scale and is very applicable. And this one can just be, again, really good for that observation, that interaction, that regular engagement with them. And then from there, maybe as a class, you create a graph, you analyze some data, you tell a story about the flowers that are blooming and the insects. Maybe certain insects like certain color flowers. That's something that you can discuss. There's also plant growth. You can do this, again, honestly, from like kindergarten up, together measuring plant growth, whether it's with a ruler or maybe finger, gardener's math, and really noticing the changes that are happening. And this is really good for an indoor activity as well. If you don't have a garden space or maybe not a space for your whole class, you can do this indoors in little pots. Another option is to do a bird feeder notebook. So even if you can do this outside, you can do it in your class and have a bird feeder outside. Students can spend, 5 minutes a day maybe a little bit more, observing the birds that are visiting. Or if you really want to get into something, phenology tracking. So really thinking about the seasonal shifts and when they're happening. There's a teacher where in my hometown, well, not my hometown, the town that I live in now, and she takes the kids out every year and she's got a little plot and they study the bitterbrush and they study the manzanita and they're looking at when they bloom. And she's been able to gather about 15 years of data that charts those bloom times and the leaf immersion. And it can just be really amazing, especially in this age of climate change, to see the changes that are happening. Insect traps are another really, really great one that I like to use. Often I just have some yogurt containers. I have some straw. You can see in this picture, it's just some straw and some wood. These are just found objects in the garden. And students work together to very carefully construct it, knowing that their creatures need to be safe. They can't be injured in any way. They need to be handled safely. The whole goal is to observe and then put them back into the soil safely and unharmed. So maybe they put a little food down there for the insects. They're thinking like bugs. So they're thinking like, oh, I want to capture something that's on the surface of the soil. My cup needs to be buried. Maybe it needs, if they want a worm, maybe it needs to be buried under soil. And so they really get to create their own designs, make some hypotheses. Afterwards, the next day, like 2 days, they can use magnifying glasses. And maybe their hypotheses didn't come true, didn't happen. They can reevaluate their designs and start again, and they can keep doing that. And there's usually a lot of data and some stories that come from that. And then they also get to have a different way of engaging with these creatures. I think through this engagement, they're really building the sense of empathy. I highly recommend too for young students, they can do this through imitating animals. So in this picture, you'll see a student, we made some hummingbird masks, and he was going around and pollinating the flowers just on his own, which was just so cute. And then also just, having a favorite pollinator, really thinking about being an advocate, having a personal connection to one type. This was a student who really focused on monarch butterflies. And really, even imitating the animals, the way that they move, becoming them, gives them a different perspective. Worm bins are often like a really great place to do that as well, because it gives a nice container. You can do it without a garden. They can engage, and even, some of them get really emotionally attached to their worms. So it's a really nice kind of closed container. Building a habitat for a specific type and sponsoring can be another really great way to build that empathy and that sense of relationship. And really thinking about in the spring, there's just kind of less, there's a little less pressure. You can experiment a little bit more. We can do a lot of discovering. Again, those scavenger hunts are really great. And then one thing that I really recommend if you're like, I'm just not quite sure where to start, sometimes just picking out a harvest and celebrating that can be a really great focal point. So recently I was talking to a school and they have an annual strawberry festival. They just get a couple flats of strawberries from a local farm and they create a whole day of it. They read what is it? The big ripe strawberry, what is it? The little mouse and the big hungry bear. And they have just like they can go out and look at maybe where their strawberries are blooming in the garden. They get to eat strawberries. They get to talk about different parts of plants. So sometimes just having that one thing, that yield can really help focus the lessons for the spring. So a couple last things to consider, letting kids be in charge can be really beautiful. Running with their ideas really allows for those organic opportunities. So in this picture, this was a high school class I was teaching, and the student who's making this flower crown, they were deadheading flower baskets, and he was using the flowers to make a flower crown for a student. And this is like a very machismo football player young man, and he had this opportunity with deadheading to create this really beautiful gentle activity out of something that probably could have gone in the compost. And that was just an organic opportunity and moment that popped up on its own. Determining a yield, so maybe it's just a radish. Everyone plants a radish and we harvest the radishes, they grow very fast. Maybe it's the yield is everyone's just going to plant a seed. Sometimes that can be a really big accomplishment for a class. Or maybe it's I'm going to try a new food. Everyone in the class is going to try one new food. Those can be things to celebrate and focus on. It's also really going to help in the spring if you can just find some people to help you. And then create some rituals and celebrations that come with that. And I just want to end here on this note. This is one of my favorite photos of a student. I didn't give him the summer squash. This was his own choice. But again, trying new foods and new opportunities and letting students just have, organic engagement and like moments for themselves. I think Sam just like perfectly embodies this here. So I hope this is helpful and kind of, gather some ideas for you. And I'm gonna pass it off to Em and Sarah.
Thank you so much, Casey Ray. That was fantastic. So many useful things there. So I'm going to share my screen and get us started.
And while Em's getting set up there, I just want to say thank you, Casey Ray. Magnificent as always. And I would just, at some point, I would love to come to Oregon and get to spend time in your garden teaching. It would just, I felt like it would be such a beautiful space to inhabit. And actually, I just want to make a point about one thing that came up in the chat that I don't think has ever happened before. I'm really sorry, I've forgotten your name, but we have somebody here who is blind or vision impaired, and they really appreciated your descriptions, Casey Ray, of the photographs. And that might have been because they weren't coming up initially, and it was just a real light bulb moment for me for accessibility. So perhaps if there is a really key photograph that makes up the main part of our slides, and this is something I'm going to really focus on in my own practice and with future presenters, we can describe photographs for those of us who are just listening, and that will be beneficial for their experience. So just wanted to share that.
I noticed that as well. And what a great, thank you to whomever shared that in the chat. That was a really nice thing to hear and something I want to start to try to do as well. So again, thank you, Casey Ray. It's an honor to be on this call with you tonight. And thank you to Take Me Outside and the Outdoor Learning Store team. I am Em Shipman from Kids Gardening, and we're going to talk about math in the garden today. So just to introduce myself again and my colleague Sarah, I am Kids Gardening's Executive Director, and I'm joining tonight from Vermont. And I'm joining with my colleague Sarah Pounders. We've worked together for many, many years at Kids Gardening, and Sarah is our Senior Education Specialist. Just a quick highlight of who Kids Gardening is. So since 1982, over 40 years, we've been creating opportunities for kids to play, learn, and grow through gardening. And we support educators and caregivers and families with grant funding to get more kids learning through the garden, but also original educational resources, some of which we'll talk about tonight, and then inspiration and community to get more kids learning through the garden. We steward something called the Kids Garden Community, which is an online community for anyone who gardens with youth to join for free and create a membership and to network with, learn from, and share with fellow garden educators. So I encourage you to check that out. In 2024, Kids Gardening was able to reach 2.7 million kids across the country. So we are a Vermont-based organization working nationally across the United States. And through the educators that we support and the caregivers, we reached nearly 3 million children with our resources and grant funding. I want to talk just a little bit of some of the benefits of learning through the garden and why it is that we do what we do. So at Kids Gardening, we believe, and we've seen through decades of experience, that learning through the garden and garden-based learning is a highly effective hands-on form of experiential learning. It inspires inquiry in youth, which we just learned a lot about from Casey Ray, and exploration. It fosters a sense of excitement and joy for learning that children need in order to stay engaged. It fosters connections to the natural world and to our origins of our food and where our food comes from. Garden-based learning offers a plethora of interdisciplinary experiences. So we'll show you tonight how you can teach math through the garden, but virtually any subject can be taught through the garden, including those that aren't considered academic, like social emotional learning, and other subjects. Which leads us to our last and one of my favorite benefits of teaching through the garden, which is that it's a very therapeutic and regulating experience for youth, especially on a sensory level. So now we're going to dig into math specifically, and I'm going to pass it over to Sarah Pounders, who's going to share with us some activities we can do, but starting with why are we teaching math through the garden?
Hi everyone. So nice to see you all today. Yes, I'm gonna kind of pick up where looking specifically, we were going to provide some examples about math learning in the garden. As we've worked with educators throughout the years, one of the things that we've learned as a key to success is to use the garden as a tool for objectives, teaching objectives that you are already instilling, but just think of the garden as a tool for you to teach those lessons. So that there are many different other tips we would give too, but that really is one that people have found success with. And when we look at math and learning in the garden, there are a lot of benefits that a garden can provide as the tool for you to teach your math standards and lessons. First of all, it allows you to do really practical, hands-on, real-life situations, which can be very motivating, inspiring for kids to really be able to see how their work is actually coming to play. It's important to what's going on. It provides opportunities for your very basics from counting, matching, sorting, shapes, angles, patterns, all those things that are very standard. And you can also move all the way up to algebra, geometry, and more advanced math too. There are lots of different ways to use measuring, standard and non-standard measuring tools, and tons of ways to collect data and present your results, which Casey Ray shared with us too. So tonight, we're going to share some practical examples of lessons that are from a book that Kids Gardening publishes called Math in the Garden. And the next slide that we have here kind of just shares a little background about Math in the Garden. It was a book that was developed in partnership between the University of California Botanic Garden and Lawrence Hall of Science through a National Science Foundation grant many years ago with the wonderful authors that I have listed here. Jennifer White, Catherine Barrett, Jean Cobb, Christine Minot, Katie Johnson, and Yvette McCullough. I just wanted to make sure to mention just so much love and work that they put into putting this together and all of these really inventive lesson plans they pilot tested at schools and botanical gardens and youth programs across the country. So just to give you a little heads up as I begin to jump in and share these examples, and just kind of I picked a few from the different topics so that you can get a feel for some ideas. So the next slide will kind of dive into just showing how the book is organized. It starts out with it's organized around some basic math concepts. So it's not necessarily tied specifically to very specific standards, but around the major concepts that you will be learning and teaching in the garden. So numbers and operations in algebra, measurement, geometry and patterns, and data analysis. And the target audience is 5 to 13, but we've definitely seen people use it with younger children and older students too. So there's a lot of room for being flexible with that. And there is a lot, it is very closely math and science related. So it's not just, as you can tell, there's a lot of overlap. So just moving on to, we'll just dive right into the lessons here, which are on the next slide. So we're going to kick off with some examples for number operation algebra. So the first one that I have wanted to share with you guys is related to, this is one of my favorite activities, how many seeds in a tomato. I've done this one so many times. The school garden that I worked with, tomatoes were an integral part of the 3rd grade curriculum. So we planted tomatoes every year just to Heads up that I am located in Texas, so tomatoes for us are a spring crop, which I know is not the case for everyone who is on the call today. So it can also be a summer and a fall crop for depending on where you're located. But we did tomatoes in the springtime, and this is a great activity. So you just need a handful. And just another note that I forgot to mention: most of these activities can be done with or without a garden. You can do all of them outside also. But you don't necessarily have to have a formal garden space to do a lot of these investigations. So how many seeds are in a tomato? So this activity, you gather a handful of cherry tomatoes, a handful of larger tomatoes. You can get all different sizes, whatever you have available. And the kids are actually going to be practicing both estimation, counting, and a little bit of measuring too, all together. So the activity starts out with looking at different tomatoes and having the kids estimate how many seeds they think are in the tomato. And then the next step is for them to measure the circumference. They can use a string, they can use a piece of paper, and then relate that to any type of measurement tool, inches, centimeters, whatever you happen to be working on with the class. And then they actually get to dive in and cut open the tomato and actually count the seeds. Depending on how many kids you have, how much time you have, what we used to do in the garden is actually divide the cherry tomatoes into pieces, and then each of the kids would take a piece of it, because you'd be surprised how many seeds are actually in these tomatoes once you get into them. So they divide them up, and then they would add all of it together to figure out how many seeds their tomato had in it. And then you have the beauty of this activity is then they do that again. So then they estimate again, and then they count another one, and they get to see how was their estimation a little bit closer this time. How did the number of seeds relate to the circumference that they measured? And then you switch it up by changing and using larger tomatoes and seeing how those two correlate. Ways to adapt this for younger children is to substitute in different types of fruits or vegetables. Perhaps fruits or vegetables have larger seeds, like use sugar snap peas, for example. And you can do different types of measurements with it. So that's definitely, not quite as many. Like I said, you'd be surprised how many seeds a tomato has in it. So this is one of my favorite lessons that I've done so many times. So another just counting and algebra basic math lesson is on the next one. So if we can, and this is about comparing area of leaves. And so area is definitely something that many kids struggle with. And so using some non-standard ways to measure to really conceptualize area is what this lesson is all about. So you begin with using a overhead transparency. So this is one way to do it, is so that you actually don't have the kids picking the leaves off the plants. So it depends on if you would like to not have the kids pick the leaves off the plants to practice with the measuring. You can use a clipboard and an overhead transparency, show them how to put the leaf gently in between the two, and then they can outline the leaf. And then take that outline and use this for their measurements. In some cases, if it's not a problem and you want to pull a few leaves off and you show them which plants can have plenty and show them how to do it carefully to not damage the plant, that's another option too. So once they have the outline of their leaf, they can use something such as some dry soup beans are often really good measuring tool. So they can fill out their outline with it, see how many beans will fit within that. And then they can compare different leaves. So for instance, if they work as individuals or in groups, each of the groups will share how many of the beans fit into the leaf outline. And so that's a different way of visualizing. So what does it mean to look at the area, to look at the perimeter? If you really want to adapt it to make it a little bit larger, for older kids, not larger, for older kids, you can use graph paper underneath. They can actually do the counting, come up with specific areas. You can also add in looking at the perimeter and measuring the perimeter. So it's just about looking at area of irregular shaped objects and thinking about that in a different way to really think about area. So we'll move on to the next example. So measurement, there's so many things to measure in the garden. So looking at, this is really kind of like one of the most common garden activities you'll ever find, and that's to measure a plant as it's growing. But the reason it's so common is because there's so much to learn in there, and there's so many ways to adapt it using standard or non-standard measuring tools. Just as a plant grows, you can throw in some science investigation. You can alter the different conditions that your plant is growing in and see and compare the two. So you can talk about height, you can talk about width. So that's really just a basic for measuring. On this next one is kind of something that is a little bit different. So we'll flip to this one, is about weighing. As we know, many of our fruits and vegetables we actually buy by the weight. So this is a very practical life skill to think about the different weight of the fruits and vegetables and how farmers will sell their produce in that way. And you create a DIY measurement tool using a balance scale. So it is a plastic hanger where you would hang two plastic containers on either side and put a weight in the middle. So when you put things that are heavier on one side, then it'll lean to the side. So it's basically you compare two different things and which weighs more. And you can also use some, instead of using like a fruit to a fruit, you can also measure things with different either blocks, or you can even, one of the things that you can do is use little plastic containers and fill them with water, and you can measure things like the apple would use 5 little plastic containers of water, whereas the squash would be 6 plastic containers of water. So it's just all thinking about those non-standard use of measurement. If you have available, you can then compare those to actually using some kind of scale. So looking past measurement is geometry and patterns. This is something that I know as a student myself, was always something that I struggled with. So one of the things you can look at is angles. There are tons of angles in nature. So going out and looking for those. So looking for tree branches or stems on your plants or flower heads, looking and comparing. So for younger kids, they might look at just calling it wide, narrow, right angles. Whereas when you get older, you can use acute angles, you can use obtuse angles, you can also have them measure using a protractor. There's just lots of different ways to look at those angles and have an angle search to see if they can find all of them. So on this next slide here, another fun one is to do a pattern snack. So to think about patterns and then get to eat it at the end. So in this activity, it turns your garden harvest into a math lesson. So each kids may have different pieces that they can then make their own pattern with. And always, this is one that it's good to do an example of so they can see what you're trying to do. So they make their pattern, then they have the friend next to them figure out what their pattern is and add onto it. So, and then, like I said, at the end, you get to enjoy it. And you can, if fruits and vegetables aren't available, you can do this with any kind of natural material, pine cones, rocks, flowers, all the various sort. So the next lesson here all fits under data analysis. This is kind of like combining the counting, combining all the measuring. A fun one to do, and Casey Ray kind of talked about like comparing different flowers. So this one is called Graph and Graph Again, because first you start out with observation and you find numerous different flowers to compare with each other. You pick out one attribute of the flower to compare. So for instance, you categorize plants based on how many petals are in the flower. And so you'd have groups. These flowers have 3 petals, these have 5, these have 7, and you put them into 2 categories and graphically display it for them. But then it's called Graph and Graph Again because then you graph it again using a different attribute. Perhaps it's color, or perhaps it is size, so that kids get to see that there's different ways to group things together, how they have different commonalities, different things that are different. So it's a great way to really think about different traits and to really have their observations come to play. So on this last activity that I've shared, this one is really unique, and it's great for especially older kids. Shadows change over time, where you actually are measuring the shadow throughout the day of a plant. and you can measure the length of the shadow. You can also use a string to look at the width and how that changes over time. You can use flags to kind of flag it as you go and see how it changes. And it really gives you a whole new perspective with science. So you kind of bring in that earth science, where you're looking at how the sun rotates through the day. It can also be something you can do throughout the year in different seasons, so that the kids can see how that changes seasonally. And on a practical scale of just gardening, it also is a great way to talk about shade and sun plants and how you decide where plants are going to fit into your landscape. So just wanted to share a couple of those activities from our Math in the Garden book. And I'll turn it back over to
Thank you, Sarah. There's so much there. So I encourage everyone to take a look at the book. We're just going to go over very quickly some additional resources available to you, and then we will open it up for questions. So here are some QR codes you can scan with your phone to some additional kids gardening webinars on Math in the Garden and a STEAM webinar, Gathering STEAM in the Garden. We have a Plant Math Fun lesson plan and a Square Foot Salad Garden lesson plan that you can grab as well, all at kidsgardening.org. I wanted to again show you where you can grab these books. So Math in the Garden is at Outdoor Learning Store. Kids Gardening also publishes a number of books, Books in Bloom, The Growing Classroom. We encourage you to go take a look if you're a garden educator and grab these books. Outdoor Learning Store has great international shipping. So if you are not in the United States, definitely use Outdoor Learning Store to grab Math in the Garden. And then lastly, for everyone participating tonight, I just wanted to let you all know that we were able to set up a coupon code for you. So if you use the code OLS, Outdoor Learning Store, 50, on our website, you can get 50% off your order of digital resources in our store. So we have lots of activity packs and just resources for teaching through the garden. About 95% of our content on our site is free for you to download. But we do have some special things in the store you can grab 50% off this week with this special code that we set up for you all. And lastly, please sign up for our newsletter. It's called Kids Garden News. It's 2 times monthly. It's an email newsletter full of fun educational resources, funding opportunities. It's just a treasure trove of resources for anyone who teaches through the garden. It's called Kids Garden News. And please feel free to reach out to Sarah or myself through the info@kidsgardening.org. We would love to hear from you, and we are here to support you.
Great.
Hooray.
Yeah. I didn't do such a great job of introducing you two, but I did want to just follow up and really highly recommend Kids Gardening Work. I can't tell you how many times I had an activity coming up and just got on their website and found a lesson that was age appropriate. I use it like all the time as a backup activity. And then Math in the Garden too. I think one of the things that I've been using it as an educator for, for a long time now. And I have really I really love the intrinsic sense of math that develops too. It can go through the science or the math standards, but there's also this like curiosity around math that builds and this like internal sense of math that I think is just as important for kids. So that's just me saying thank you both for doing that. And I just highly recommend this resource.
Thank you, Casey Ray.
I recommend them all, both of them. And just the work that you're doing is so powerful and important, and has lots and lots of great feedback in the chat already just about the quality of the activities. And yeah, just such a wonderful thing. Look, we're running out of time. I just wanted to ask one quick question. And if you can stick around with us, please do. If you're still live here, you could be in with a chance to win one of 4 prizes: 2 $25 gift cards to the Outdoor Learning Store and 2 to the Take Me Outside store. So just stay with us for a minute. But okay, Ali's asking, what are some herbs that are easy to grow in pots? Mint and basil come to mind, but I'd love more suggestions and maybe some things that work in different climatic zones. Casey Ray, I'm coming to you.
Yeah, I highly recommend parsley and cilantro. Parsley does usually pretty well in colder climates, and cilantro does pretty well in hotter climates. Those can grow pretty fast and germinate quickly.
Amazing. So efficient. And one question, Donna asked, you touched on it ever so slightly, Casey Ray, but Em or Sarah, do you have any resources within yours that help children with fear of insects or bugs or creepy crawlies?
That is great.
I was gonna say, I don't know if we have any resources specific to those related to the fear, as much as we do have a lot of different ways of looking at insects. So we do have a ton of activities, especially related to pollinators. Pollinators are great entry point for a lot of kids to think about, how they are part of our ecosystem, how they're part of our food system, how critical they are. And so just, getting to know, like Casey Ray had that great activity where they, pick a favorite pollinator or become the, have adopt a pollinator. So I think that's a good entry point.
I would also just say that you can grab replicas, models of insects, and bring them into the classroom and investigate them closely, and to build up as a stepping stone to interacting with the real thing.
That's great. And I would add sometimes it's nice to work in groups when doing this observation. So everyone has a role. Maybe there's a student who feels much more comfortable as a scribe at a distance, or can kind of engage in that way. And then I guess one of the challenges too is that as an educator, we need to embody the values that we want to see for our students. So sometimes that means being okay ourselves with the discomfort and thinking about how we want to talk about it with our students, and maybe come up with some solutions so we can still engage.
I love that. And that language can be a big thing, right? I don't use creepy crawly, for example, when I'm with the kids, because creepy has that potential for a negative connotation. But these are our insect friends. These are our winged friends. These are our many-footed friends. I wonder what it would be like to have like 30 pairs of feet and be a caterpillar or something. I don't know. I actually, don't quote me on that. I don't know how many pairs of feet caterpillars have. Maybe that's a question we can study. Maybe they have different ones. Who knows? I'm really grateful. We're really aware that we want to try and honor people's time, all of your wonderful presentation time, all the prep that went into this and creating this for us. We're really, really grateful. To the 500 folks that have joined, plus people who've joined us live, we really appreciate each and every one of you. You will get a follow-up email tomorrow by 12 p.m. Pacific in your inbox. If you don't get it, check your spam. There's a link to the recording in there. There is a link to get your certificates. It's just you enter your name and then you can download the PDF immediately, but we'll get that link to you tomorrow. It's on an honor system. So if you just watch the recording, if you're watching this recording, you are welcome to get a certificate too. And if you have any questions, you can reply to that email or the one we sent you as a reminder, and we can answer those questions for you. So thank you so much for being here. And hey, we're all learning, and I really have to check myself with my language. Someone's touching on that. It's so hard because certain things freak me out as well. I grew up in the city, and things scared me. So it's been like a beautiful social emotional learning curve for me as an educator as well. The garden has become an incredibly sort of safe and secure space for me to explore some of my discomfort. So I'm really grateful for that space. Okay, friends, presenters, Casey Ray, Sarah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Julie, you ready for the names? Here we go. I'm just doing the old random selection, folks. Okay, we're looking for 4 winners. Okay. Donna Maria. Donna Maria, you're going to get a gift card to the Outdoor Learning Store. Don't worry, we're going to find your email and we'll send you an email in the next couple of days. Okay, next winner is Judy Choi. CHOI, Judy, Judy, Judy Choi. You are our second Outdoor Learning Store winner. Woohoo! Okay, Take Me Outside winners are Rachel Woodworth. Rachel Woodworth, you are our third winner. And number 4 is Tyra Mercure. Tyra Mercure. Tyra Mercure. Beautiful name.
Mhm.
Hooray. Gift cards coming to you. We will email you. And again, if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you're going to join us for our next workshop. You can go to outdoorlearning.com/events and sign up for all of them if you haven't, or the next one, or whichever one speaks to your heart. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. And we wish you good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.